You have it in place though?
Went in the wrong pipe.
Oh God, you are.
That's not what I'm. It's not the right chord.
Are you forgetting a?
Get my
I think
soda.
that might be too late or too
It's a
low.
soda.
No.
Too high.
Oh God.
God,
You are
my God,
my
I will ever praise you. God, my God, I will ever praise you. Sorry, I can't get it ready.
You there you go.
Give light, give love, you bring light into the darkness. You restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. You give life, you love, you bring life to the darkness. You hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Holy earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Holy earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Holy earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Great are you, Lord. Father, we're grateful to be here. We're grateful for the rain. We're grateful for each other's friendship and for your promises. Like the promise that you're going to be among us when we gather in your name. And we are gathered in your name. Anoint us with your Spirit, Father, so that we can understand the words you're teaching. And anoint us with your Spirit so you can empower us to live according to what we learn. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right.
So who wants to lead us? Thank you so much. Who wants to lead us in communion tonight?
Amy, you haven't done it
You said she wants to.
in a long time. Haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, I think Amy wants to do it.
I think Amy wants to do it too.
Yeah, Amy.
She's
Hey,
she's
Amy.
busting at the seams to do.
Oh, we need the mics. Did you get yours?
Thank you. Somebody's meowing somewhere.
Alright,
I will survive. I will survive.
I want to share about camp. It was like what the Lord showed me really stuck with me. So I went in with the mindset of I'm a leader, I'm here for my girls, like this is about them. I need to make sure that they're where they need to be, that they're getting everything they need, like they're my focus. And the youth staff had told the leaders like don't forget about that, like, show you stuff, and I was like, it's about the kids, I get to do the camp. So, but anywho, it was I thought it was like the first night of worship or the second service, but my girls love to go up for worship, like they go all out, so I always go with them. And as we were worshiping, one of my girls was behind me, and I could hear her singing. And like I never really hear them singing like on a Wednesday night. They're always like either in front of me or it's like really loud. I never actually hear them, but she was right behind my ear singing, and it made me cry hearing her because I was thinking like, wow, like she's a child like worshiping the Lord like with everything that she has, and it was really sweet to like be a part of that. And as I was focused on her, like the Lord showed me like that's how I see you. Like you are my child worshiping me. Like it's not just them. Like and I forget sometimes that yes, I'm not a child, but I'm a child of God, and I don't ever want to like take that lightly or forget that or just think, oh no, I'm here for this specific purpose. Like I'm there to serve the Lord. Like yes, I'm here to serve my girls, but I'm through that I'm serving the Lord, and it does see me as a child worshiping Him. I'm not crying, you're crying. Yes.
How old was the girl? I mean,
they're like 12 or 13.
So middle school.
They're my little babies. But it was just a sweet moment that I had with the Lord. And then throughout camp too, just being able to hear how like God is speaking to like such young children, like because I never really had that growing up, like an actual relationship with God. And so seeing that in kids so young, like gave me a lot of hope for like my future kids, like they're gonna be able to have that. And we also got to have a time of communion with our small group, so I was able to lead them, and like they also like led little parts of it. So it's sweet. Like even though it's a different dynamic, like I'm their leader, we're still all under God. Like we're all His children, and so being able to share that moment with them too was really sweet. And it's just like little reminders like that are actually like the big things. I feel like my relationship with the Lord is very focused on. They're meaningful to me, but yeah, with communion, like it's something you would never just take as do or just going through the motions. Like I don't ever want to feel like that or treat it that way. It's always a reminder of yes, of course, what the Lord has done to do. Like it didn't just stop. It continues into the life. And have that relationship. Always be childlike with Him. So just again reflect on. Thank you for your sacrifice, Lord. I would never take it lightly. In remembrance of it, really understand the weight of joy a relationship with you. Please help us to be grateful for that every single day. Thank you, Lord. You've given us this.
Thank you, Jesus. Anyway, teaching Matthew has been torture because you know we're one chapter at a time. So when it was my turn to teach, I'd always pick a small portion. And chapter 28 is very rich. You know, the Great Commission is there, the resurrection itself, and there's a lot to cover there. I can easily split it into 5 lessons, but we're only given one. So our church is pretty good on the Great Commission. What generally Christians lack is apologetics. So I decided it would be a good opportunity to talk a bit about apologetics today. So, where did the best news in the world come from? What location? Yeah, I guess. Which one would be first best news? Which one would be the second best news? The resurrection is probably one of the top 2. So birth and resurrection, I guess. So one of the one about the resurrection, it came from the cemetery, because this is where it all happened. An African Muslim became a Christian. It's a true story. And they, you know, of course, he was risking his life, you know, to leave Islam. They're allowed to execute you for that. And they asked him why in the world he would change his faith like that. And he says, well, it's like that. You come to a fork in the road, and on one part of the road, you come to a fork in the road, and one road there is a living person, the other one has a dead person in it. Which road would you choose? And I think it's a very apt analogy. Bless you. It's a very apt analogy because, you know, you can find the tomb of Buddha, you can find the tomb of Muhammad, and even if you couldn't, you knew they died. But Jesus came back to life. There is no tomb. I heard there was a debate between a Christian and a Muslim, and the audience was filled with Christians and Muslims, and they were discussing their faiths. And finally, one of the guys from the audience decided to mock the Christian debater, and he says, anytime I want, I can go and visit the tomb of Muhammad. You don't even have that. And then there was silence. And because he proved the point of the Christian debater, there is no tomb. There is no tomb to visit. Because he's alive. The resurrection sealed the deal. It's one of the most vital doctrines of Christianity, and that's why from the very beginning, from the moment it happened, the enemy has been trying to throw shade on it, on the resurrection, trying to disprove it somehow, to debunk it. You may remember people who were mocking Jesus when he was on the cross. They said, he saved others, but then can he save himself? He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross, and then we'll believe in him. And this is what Jesus pretty much did. Once he was buried, he came down from the cross. He came back to life. Do you think they were eager to believe in him then? We know a lot of people in Jerusalem believed. Thousands came to Jesus. Thousands were added to the church every day, but it still was a small fraction of the total population, even after they learned about Jesus and his and the resurrection. The most important question in the world is, who is Jesus? And the most important question about Jesus is, did he really rise from the dead? If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, then he wasn't who he said he was. Then Paul says that our faith is futile if he didn't rise from the dead. It's totally in vain. We can just pick up our bags and go home if we figure out that he didn't rise from the dead. But if Jesus did rise from the dead, then he's truly the Son of God, truly who he said he was, and we owe our life to him. So let's read today's passage.
Matthew 28, 11 through 15. And while they were going, behold, some of the guard came to the city, all the things that had happened. When they had assembled with the elders and consulted together, they gave a large sum of money to the soldiers, saying, tell them, his disciples came at night, stole him away while we slept. If this comes to the governor's ears, we will appease him and make you secure. So they took the money and did as they were instructed, and this saying is commonly reported among you.
Okay, the religious leaders did not want to accept the fact that Jesus rose from the dead because they realized that it proved everything that Jesus was saying and would validate all his teachings about other things as well, including teachings about them, that they were brutal vipers. And they didn't want others to believe in it either. So they created a cover story. From the very end, that cover story, before I became a Christian, I remember people were saying that thing. Even now, 2,000 years later, they're using the same cover story. The religious leaders, why do you think they didn't want to believe in Jesus? You'd think that if they were waiting for the Messiah and they finally realized that this guy rose from the dead and they knew enough scriptures to know that he fulfilled a lot of the prophecies about the Messiah, you'd think they'd be celebrating. So why do you think they weren't? Okay. But we know that a lot of people who ultimately believed in him were also, like Paul, for example, they were also proud. But he pretty much had the same roadblocks that all the Pharisees and religious leaders. I like their position. But remembering John says why people don't believe? Because they love their sin, they love the darkness. So like you said, they like the status quo. We learned in the previous chapters that they were hypocrites. that they were whitewashed tombs. And even though they taught the right things, they taught the things so well that Jesus even told the people, you listen to what they teach and obey what they teach. Just don't do what they do. So their teaching was on the money, but their actions, their hearts were hardened. They were not in it. They loved their sin. That's ultimately why anybody rejects Jesus. It's because they love sin, they love the darkness, they don't want to give it up. Paul was different. He was a sincere believer. He believed the wrong things, but he was sincere. So when he was presented with the gospel, when he met Jesus on the road to Damascus, he just, tell me what you do and I'll do it. That was faith manifested in obedience. So, and even today we're gonna, there are several cover stories that they invent to debunk Jesus' resurrection. So we're gonna talk about them today and see the deficiencies, how we can disprove their cover stories. Because, none of them can stand up to evidence. The first cover story, the disciples stole the body. This is the original cover story, the granddaddy of them all. So while the women were on their way to share the good news with the disciples, once they discovered the tomb was empty, some of the guards went into the city to report the bad news, that the tomb was empty. Basically, to them it was the bad news. They went to the chief priests. The chief priests, this is not a bad job by AI. The chief priests paid the bribe to the soldiers, a large amount of money. They even told them they will protect the guards if Pilate learns about them falling asleep. So, and they said, okay, you were asleep, and the disciples stole the body. And if you think about it, so here they're paying the money to them, a bribe. They also paid the money to Judas. If I was a member of that synagogue, I'd be seriously concerned how they're spending my donations. One for betrayal, another one for bribe to cover up. To be honest, I'm not even sure that they were asleep. I think they were awake when it happened. They just didn't.
They were awake.
Okay. What was it?
That was the cover story, was to say that they were asleep.
That's right,
It would have
that's
been
right.
against the law. Like, they would have been killed for that.
Yeah, they would have been executed for that. That's all right. You're right. That it's not in this gospel, elsewhere. Okay, but anyway, so and he promised to protect them against Pilate if Pilate learned about it, because he knew that he was within his rights to execute him for falling asleep. So they ran with the story. Here are the problems with this cover story. This is why the guards were there to begin with, right? To protect them, protect the body from being stolen. So it kind of, right on the face, that story did not make sense, because they were there to guard the body from being. Well, remember, whenever they were burying Jesus, they asked Pilate to place some guards. You remember the reason why? They said so that they don't steal it and then claim that he rose from the dead. The second reason it doesn't make sense is they put the seal on. They put the seal on the stone. Okay. To stop from happening. That's to say. Secondly, that was the second thing. I didn't put that seal thing there. If the guards were asleep, how did they know what happened? See, they're telling him, okay, tell them that you were asleep, and while you were asleep, the disciples stole it. But how would they know that the disciples stole it if they were asleep and unconscious at the time? Basically, if they had to give that testimony in court that they were asleep and somehow they knew the disciples stole it, they would get laughed out of court, right? Third, if the body was stolen, they could have simply investigated it and recovered the body from the disciples. Fourth, probably the main one, the disciples ultimately died. Almost all of them died for their faith. If they knew they stole the body, why in the world would they sacrifice their lives for a lie? If they were the ones who perpetrated that lie. So, it's not like, if, for example, there were modern day televangelists that were getting rich off that story. Maybe there was a reason, but they all died in poverty and executed in the most heinous ways, the most terrible ways, sacrificing their lives for Jesus. They wouldn't have done it for a lie. They just continued to proclaiming the gospel until they got into trouble and not out of trouble. These days there are a lot of hypocrite Christians because it benefits them in one way or another. It doesn't cost them their lives. Like if those same hypocritical Christians were to end up somewhere in the Middle East and were told to renounce Jesus, I don't think they'd have problems renouncing him. As the famous French philosopher said, I believe the witnesses that get their throats cut. Right? If they get killed for their testimony, it means that their testimony is true. And another thing that is totally wild, why stop and remove the burial cloth in the middle of a time? They're there committing a heist of the century, of the millennium, stealing the body of Jesus. They need to get in and out. Instead, they unwrap 75 pounds worth of linen and herbs and wrappings, and they're, off his body, and then they take off the headcloth and they neatly fold it, and then once the room is in order, they take off. They have to take a major OCD to get all that done. But I don't think they'd be worried about that, the unwrapping part, that's for sure. Cover story number 2. That never made sense to me, but it's out there. The religious leaders moved the body. Why? Okay, first of all, yeah, exactly. Why would they do this? But they tell this story. They're desperate. That's the worst. They said that would be the worst thing that could happen if his body disappeared. Secondly, again, same question. Why leave the cloths? The grave cloths. They had value. You'd want to take them and I guess wash them and reuse them if you were desperate. But in either case, why unwrap them and unwrap the cloths and leave them there? Could they do it? I don't know.
Talking about cleanliness? Well, they were unclean just from touching a dead body.
That would have. They say, okay, we may as well get.
They already had to go through purification right from touching.
That's true. That could be actually another point, that the devout Jews would not have done that. All right. Thirdly, all they had to do is produce the body, and the whole story about Jesus rising from the dead would have been debunked right away. Right? If y'all notice another point like Maggie did with the dead body, please bring it up.
Well, I'm just
would be good to know.
about, I don't remember what follows the Passover, what in the traditional celebration of Passover. I don't remember.
Pentecost, right?
Huh?
Pentecost.
No, I don't remember what immediately follows. If there was anything after, but if there was, that would be another, what she's saying would be another reason, because they wouldn't want to be. They wouldn't be able to participate because they would be considered impure. Because
They couldn't do anything.
They couldn't even touch.
All day.
They couldn't even touch the tomb, the wall of the tomb. They'd get dirt.
But my point is, if they had any other traditions that needed to be carried out the following day, they wouldn't be able to do it because they would need to go through the
I think the feast went on for more than a day.
Well,
I
it's
think
just
it was a
like the
week.
Well, I was thinking that too. That's why I was bringing it up.
It's like the lady with the issue of blood, and she touched the hem
All right, the next cover story also circulating. They went to the wrong tomb. People say it even now. Well, there are women that got lost.
lost.
Well, they say it was.
Wait, what?
They say it's.
They're the ones that get lost. They didn't ask for directions.
These people say it was early morning. It was still dark. They were greeting. Their eyes were all swollen and teary, and they were confused. So they went to the wrong tomb. Well, there are problems with that too. First of all, this was an easily identifiable brand new tomb belonging to Joseph of Arimathea.
It's easy to clear up, and it
Yes.
wasn't cleared up.
It was very specific, well marked, easily identified. Secondly, the women were there when Jesus was buried, so they knew exactly where it was. It says in Matthew 27:61. Thirdly, if they went to the wrong tomb, did the guards also guard the wrong tomb? They could have just said, okay, well, he's missing in that tomb, but he's right here in this tomb. So they wouldn't have gotten up all worried.
Did they also seal the wrong tomb? That's
So if they went to the wrong tomb, that means Jesus was in the right tomb and the guards were still watching him. And the last one, same as the previous one, just produce the body. That's it. The story's gone. But for some reason, people produce this weak cover stories, and there are some who believe them. And, if the first three cover stories we discussed, they cover the empty tomb situation. The next two I'm going to talk about, they explain why they saw living Jesus, the appearances of Jesus after he's resurrected. So it's not about the tomb, it's to explain why he was walking around alive and well. So the fourth cover story, Jesus didn't really die. That's why they saw him alive. They call it a swoon theory because he just fainted on the cross.
he lost a lot of blood.
Yeah, everyone thought he was dead, but in reality, he went to the tomb. It was nice and cool at the tomb, as it is in all the tombs. It was refreshing. And he was so refreshed that, on the third day, he just walked out, pushed the heavy stone, and started showing up, saying shalom to people. Now, but this story is actually very common to this day. First of all, even if Jesus didn't really die, he would have been in a terrible physical shape. I mean, look, he was beaten by the arresting guards, and he was then flogged by the Romans to within an inch of his life, to the point where most people would have actually died. He was crucified and stayed on the cross for hours, and then he was pierced with the spear in the vital organs area. As a doctor, I'm telling you, even if it didn't reach his heart, it would have killed him. But it reached his heart. So Jesus was certified dead by the people who knew what dead was. Twice. Once when they went to see, when they were told to break his legs, because that's what they did to speed up the death. And when the guard came up to him to break his legs, he's already dead, there's no point in breaking his legs, which was also a fulfillment of a prophecy. It's another story. And the second time when Pilate asked for confirmation of his death. So he was certified dead twice by the people who really knew by the trained soldiers who were familiar with death. So they knew the difference between a man who fainted and a man who died. So, and even if the centurion messed up 2 times, then you still have Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea who would have known they were burying a living person. And
Thoughts of other
well, I don't know enough how tightly and how thick they were. So they would have, maybe the tide wrapping would have also restricted the breathing if anybody was alive there. They would have noticed if Jesus was alive when Jesus was wrapped in 75 pounds of linen and spices and scents and all kinds of stuff. They laid him in the tomb. And not only that, they sealed the tomb. So Jesus, in his weakened condition, wouldn't have been able to push that heavy stone. Even a healthy young male, strong male, wouldn't have been able to push the stone alone. It was very heavy. And then he would have had to, stumble out of the tomb, holding his pierced side and barely, with a beaten back and, skin ripped off his back. And he would have had to push the stone, go by all those guards who were not allowed to fall asleep, and somehow manage to then walk around the people and claim. You have to have more faith to believe in that stupid story than into resurrection itself. Yeah, you have to have very strong faith. All right. The story number 5. The disciples were hallucinating. They didn't really see Jesus. So, if Jesus only appeared to one disciple, or at least one at a time, you could probably blame it on hallucinations. Even then, it would have been a stretch. Everybody, this guy, that guy, everybody is hallucinating in their own turn. Even then, it would have been a hard story, but at least one at a time. But just like two sleeping people cannot have the same dream, unless I guess it's a supernatural dream from God, so two people cannot have the same hallucination. At the exactly same time, at least. So we can debunk this cover story with this. Jesus appeared to lots of different people in groups of 2 or more. And he appeared repeatedly over the next 40 days. So there would have been some massive hallucination that not only happened to hundreds of people, maybe thousands in total, but kept happening for 40 days in a row. It's just not possible, medically speaking. And hallucinations are rare in general. They show it in movies like it's a common thing. People are seeing things that are not there. But true hallucinations are extremely rare. People have illusions that's different. When they see something that's there, but they don't see it the way it is. But this is not what's happening here. So they're very rare, and they're definitely not shared. They're not mass hallucinations. And they usually happen about things that people desperately want to believe. Like they want to believe in something and they hallucinate it. The disciples did not want to believe it because they didn't know it was going to happen. Because they did not understand Jesus' teaching about resurrection until after he resurrected. And until after they learned about his resurrection. We talked about it when we were still in John. That the disciples did not truly believe or didn't even know he was talking about his own bodily resurrection yet. So they could not have wanted it to see him alive because they didn't know it was going to happen. The women were not really expecting Jesus to be. They went there to, put a few more pounds of scents and stuff on his body. So they did not. They went expecting to anoint a dead body, not a living person. So, and the disciples themselves, they were hiding from the authorities. If they were expecting to see Jesus alive, they would have been waiting at the tomb, not somewhere locked up in a house. They were hiding in the upper room in fear of being arrested and put in jail or executed. So they were, and even when they were told Jesus resurrected, they didn't want to believe it. So clearly it's not something that they would have hallucinated if they were prone to do so. And once again, then if they were hallucinating that Jesus' body is in the tomb, then let's produce the body and debunk this whole hallucination story, right? All they had to do, because if these are hallucinations, that the body is still in the tomb. So none of these cover stories work. And it's, if you really think about it logically, if you're intellectually honest, even if you don't want to believe in it, you'll see that the only possible reason for all these events to occur is Jesus rose from the dead. There's no other logical explanation. You have to to have more faith in other things to believe in those stupid stories. And I think the biggest evidence that Jesus rose from the dead is all the changed lives that happened back on that day and that still keep happening now for thousands of years now. Throughout history, the lives miraculously changed. This is one of the biggest evidences of that Jesus is still alive. There's a lot of things that can't possibly happen because somebody just thinks positive thinking or, just change their lives philosophy.
That's what the world says. Isn't that what the world tries to say today? Is that it's mass emotional hysteria, that it's we want this change so badly.
And
that
it's
we all manufacture
and that
it.
theory is just as dumb as these theories because it wouldn't be sustainable. Look, these people convert to Jesus and they walk till the end of their life. What, on the height of their one emotion that just lasted an entire lifetime? No.
But even if they applied that, even if they said, oh, it was mass hysteria and they all wanted it, then you were all out there saying, crucify him. You didn't want him. You wanted him dead. So when it for someone
Yeah.
who's actually dead and not alive,
Look, those three.
Today.
oh no.
Well, in
They
those.
say it's mass hysteria that we're all,
Yeah, for thousands.
we're all hopped up on emotion.
Look at those 3,000 men who
Yeah, I'm
believed.
still a little upset. Dad, they put him on a cross. Yeah, it's not mass hysteria.
I think the 3,000 men can be used as evidence too, because I'm sure that a lot of them were the same ones who greeted him with Hosanna when he came into Jerusalem, and among them there were the same ones who shouted, "Crucify him," as well. And then they saw what happened on the Pentecost, and they believed the testimony that Jesus rose from the dead. After they crucified Jesus, like Maggie says, after they were yelling crucified, they were cut to their heart, it says, because they felt convicted for what they did. And the enemies of Christ became his children on that day. That's it's a spiritual evidence, but to me it's just as valid as any of the physical evidence. But yeah, you're right. The mass hysteria, it doesn't last. You run out of emotions eventually. It's
I wonder how many
it's
people
fleeting.
actually started following like believing Christ, but actually following after him, because you just put yourself in that situation, that explosive kind of time frame. They were Hosanna and then by him, and he did, and then the veil in the temple tore from his floor and all this kind of stuff. And you know that there had to be some Pharisees. Gosh, because they read it. They read it. These are
Keep in
prophecies
mind
that
that they
had
might have
all-
covered that up.
I know.
That may not have
This is what
the
I like
curtain
to.
may not have been common knowledge because that would have been hidden from the
Yeah,
sight
I'm not
of.
talking about common knowledge. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the person who knows, because I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, you can lie to me all you want, but you can't lie to yourself.
Yeah,
I'm sure some of the Pharisees, they came to believe in Jesus.
yeah, I'm sure they did.
But, mass hysteria doesn't work also because look at how many intellectuals are believers. The people who are not prone to emotion. Like, I'm very analytical. I have to, analyze information, process it, and accept it or reject it. And there are people who, just not emotional. They're more intellectual than emotional, and they're true believers. So they wouldn't to become a victim of mass hysteria, you have to be a certain type of person. Not everybody can experience that. Because it's a real thing. Hysteria, mass hysteria, it's a real thing. So it doesn't explain anything either. To change lives, went from hiding, the disciples went from hiding from authorities to boldly preaching. And, they were arrested and told, don't preach it. And it says, no, how can we listen to men and not to God if he tells us to preach? And then, there are many holes in every cover story, and there are no holes in the actual true story. And the more stories they create, the more holes they get. They can't plug them all. And all cover stories, we laughed at them today, but they're actually deadly. Because some people who look at them superficially and don't bother to look for evidence or for holes in the cover stories, they may walk away from the gospel and not even bother coming back. Because, like I said before, I believed that they stole the body and that Mary was raped by Roman soldiers. She was, all those stories were still circulating among my fellowship circles. And if I did not bother to look deeply into it or to do my own research or to listen, at least give a chance to Christians to explain, I would have been satisfied. Because, if you want to live in your own filth, your own sin, you don't need a whole lot of excuses. But I think these stories are responsible for some people not walking away from the gospel. Yeah. So these stories are deadly. They cost lives, cost souls. Yeah. Yeah, salvation depends on it, because it says that if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, the resurrection is essential for our faith. You cannot be a Christian without believing in resurrection, because there are some who claim to be Christians, but they believe all these stories, either metaphors or allegories, that it's not literally true. They are not saved. They deceive themselves. And you will be saved. And as Paul says, if Christ is not risen, your faith is futile, and you're still in your sins. He is risen. He is risen indeed. All right, we have a few minutes if anybody would like to add something or to
I
share.
think what's coming to my head is, in our common day right now, we're, bombarded with stories of one mega pastor after another who's found guilty of atrocities and things that we shouldn't even speak about. And then you have people then justifying that their faith wasn't real, justifying that they were hopped up on emotion, they were teaching us, crazy things, and we just went along with it, and now we're sober, we're not drunk on the Spirit or whatever lies they're choosing to believe, anything to justify not following the same path that they were led down by someone who committed such atrocities. And, obviously we know who's behind that, right? Who wants people to fall away from their faith? He's the one that's gonna lie, and he's gonna try to convince them. So I think in my mind, I'm thinking, not just how do we defend the resurrection, but how do we defend, like you said, the transformation that took place in those hearts and those minds, and how do we speak that truth over people who are, they're doubting, they're struggling, they don't want to follow the leaders anymore. They don't have faith in the leaders, and they don't trust their leaders. We've had some similar conversations like that in our group before. But I think my heart is like, how do we help those people? How do we keep life and peace back into their hearts when they're just so hurt, demoralized by what they see happening? But I'll know.
Yeah, there is one from Bernie or somewhere here in this area.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
was in
we
the
all
news
know.
lately.
We all know them. We know of them. We know. I mean, I've seen people who are documenting their stories on social media, and they're basically presenting their entire faith as a lie and presenting how brainwashed they were, almost as if they were part of a cult, like a David Koresh type of thing, rather than, just saying, yeah, our pastor was bad news, and he did some really horrible things, and I don't condone anything that he did, but Jesus Christ is alive, and he's real, and I follow him. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're so afraid to be associated with that person or that church that they just completely run away and then come up with these, stories of why it was never real to begin with.
I feel like there's a lot of pastors that's happened to. There are several pastors that I've felt God move in like a message that they've given and that kind of stuff. God for that message because I needed it at that time, and so I feel like God can. So that's just not following a pastor.
We know that, but how do we minister? How do we minister to them? How do we minister to the people who are hurting? How do we speak life into those people who have been betrayed? How do we? What's our strategy?
There to just listen, because I think there's also a lot of things that are toxic in Christian, American Christianity. Really, American makes it general, but I mean, I see it more continuing less, but just the feeling of like, oh, like, yeah, just I think just being there and not just being like, oh, well, some of the best, some of the best. Well, wait a second. There's a reality, but that does not reflect who Jesus is. I was reminded, like, the church is loved by Jesus. He died for the church, and yet the church is made up of people. Only one righteous person. So when I've had these hard conversations, I tell people, like what Mag is saying, like you can't put all your faith in the pastor. That doesn't mean you should be skeptical of them, but pray for them. Like pray for them. Like they're a human being. Like they can fall, and praying for them. But yeah, I think the main thing is just listening, not being immediately just being. You just need to have stronger faith. You need to have stronger faith.
You're talking about listening to people who walked away from Jesus, or
make sure people that maybe walked away or are very confused.
but what would be the purpose to bring him back?
Make sure, like, how do you minister to them to get them back into church, get them back into.
Isn't there a verse that says once you walk away, that's it? There's no way back.
But I mean, if they didn't, I guess.
I'm not talking about falling in sin. That's different. In sin, you can fall and come back many times. But there's one verse. I don't know if we can build a doctrine on that one verse, but I remember it, kind of stinging verse that if you walk away from your faith, you can't come back.
You're kind of stepping on the blood of Jesus. the second time. But yeah, but I get what you're saying. It's like because I mean I think the main thing is just talking to them, letting them know like, hey, that was not okay. Like
Yeah.
that pastor
Yeah, we're
or
not
that leader,
condoning the
yeah.
sin. We're not
Like, but
condoning
I
those
think
actions.
also like calling it out, like yeah, like that was wrong. Like you know, one thing that I'll always appreciate about Gateway is when there was issues happening um, with not Chi Alpha, all Chi Alpha, used to say Chi Alpha. I like how they were really straightforward and like really transparent about it. Like, yo, like truth, these are the steps that we took to, help these pastors, get right. Some wanted to, some did not. But I think that's like the best way of like handling it when it comes to a big thing like that. Yeah. We're not gonna just like not tell the congregation. I think that's also a way of not just kind of like just sweeping it under the rug. Like, oh, like only people that know what happened. And it was,
And I have a friend that, or we had Danny, and she basically got pregnant in high school. And so when her kids got old enough, she decided to go back to college. Took a course that she thought was going to be on Christianity. It wasn't. And she was completely deceived by what she was taught. And started out just as, the classes were raising questions in her mind. And those questions turned into doubt. And left her faith, left her family.
Who, Shirley? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, can we not say that? We're recording.
Oh. Well, nobody knows who she is.
But, she left everything. And, from what I know about her today, botched life. Not even the same person. So I think about those friends, right? Walk with the Lord and how powerful it is. Let people try. Now they pro abortion, pro sexuality, and everything else but pro Jesus. They're not pro Jesus. They're, like anything and everything is good except for Jesus. And, think about those people that I loved, that I still love, that I don't have any confidence that I'm never going to see them again. Never going to spend eternity. That they're going to spend eternity suffering, separated from the Lord. And, I look at how the enemy robs people through the actions of one man, right? One person, one person doing his will. All the damage that is from that. Number one, I think that there have to be praying that the enemy would be thwarted. His schemes would never come to